Project management concepts may seem tough at times, but not to worry. You have a coach who makes it as easy as ABC. Here he is to set things straight for you. Your friend, Phil.
Hello, my most awesome project managers. How are you? It's been a pretty rough week for some of you. Your exams were cancelled, and I'm sorry to hear about that. But this is a very quick touch point just to answer any questions you have. At the same time, to walk you through schedule management, quick brain dump, nothing major. I'm going to let you have a peaceful weekend. Huge shout out to one of our students, Yasser. And Yasser passed his CAPM exam today. I just got the great news before joining on. Those of my students who are on the pilot training, well, today's your pilot mock exam, and if you check your emails, you'll find all the instructions. So Sadaf and Rochelle were the only ones who showed up at the time I asked. So the rest of you got emails with videos and a link to the mock exam, which has a healthy dose of your agile flavors and your leadership flavors for this pilot exam. So I hope you enjoy those. But for those of you who are taking the current exam, you don't need to worry about any of that, except let's talk about schedule management. Let's talk about cost management. And let's do a very quick brain dump. And if you've got any questions along the way, feel free to ask. So last time we met, we talked about integration. We did a quick brain dump there. And we also did scope, very rapid brain dump. And today we are going to talk about schedule and cost. And the main purpose is just to keep you guys centered and grounded on what you should be studying for these chapters. Because I know it can be hard. There's so much information, and knowing what to study sometimes can be tricky. So let's go straight into schedule management. Schedule management is one of those areas I find students being thrown off on because it starts off with something that sounds like you are scheduling, but you're actually not. It's planned schedule management. And a lot of people think, oh, that's where I put my schedule together. No, it's not. It's not where you put your schedule together. Planned schedule management is where you decide what tools to use, how accurate your schedule needs to be, and all that. So, as usual, I just say know your EDM. What do I mean by EDM? Expert judgment, data analysis, meetings. And know what exactly you're doing in this EDM. So, let's take a look at the PMBOK guide just to get our feet wet with the EDM. And, you know, I've talked about EDM before. You find EDM in a number of places. You find it across the triple constraint areas: schedule, cost, scope, risk as well. And you just got to know what exactly you're meeting about, what you're analyzing, and what you're meeting to discuss. So if you follow me to 6.1, on page 181, we got expert judgment, and it says expertise considered from individuals with knowledge about schedule development, schedule methodologies. Then we've got data analysis. What are you analyzing? Alternatives. Excuse me, the schedule methodology to use, and then meetings. You know, you got to meet to decide upon these things. And that is one of the major things I want to call out in planned schedule management. And then the next thing I want to call out is the output. The output that you get from here is the schedule management plan. Now, you got to know your schedule management plan, not because I feel you're going to get so many questions from it, but knowing the format of this schedule management plan is going to help you in cost, because the format is pretty much the same. Let's go to page 181. What do we have here? We have the schedule model development. Now, this word schedule model, I don't know about this word. I don't know about this word because it throws off some poor students. They're like, Phil, what? Model? Is this Vogue? What is this? Schedule model just talks about all the data and how you can interpret what that data is, either in a Gantt chart, in the schedule itself, a tabular schedule, in a network diagram. All of that data, we call it the model. All the data, all the associated data, all the piling on and the adding of data that will happen throughout the schedule, that's the model. And you could choose to show the model in a variety of ways. So that's the first bullet on page 182. You got to know all of these sub-bullets, all right? So release and iteration length, that ring a bell from the world of adaptive. Level of accuracy, unit of measure, organizational procedures links. Again, another vague term. What do they really mean by this? Think about it. Procedures. They're talking about how to link whatever you do in schedule to scope to the accounting system. So some of these terms, they just sound meaningless until you really dig into them. And I want to encourage you, as you study, dig into every item that you find that you feel you don't understand. Dig into the detail. It's really going to help you in the long run. We got control thresholds, rules of performance measurement for earned value management. So there's some talk about earned value even right here in scheduling, and then reporting formats. So you got to know your schedule management plan, format, and contents, because this will help you when you get to cost. And it's so important. I've made it red. All right, let's go to our next one. Define, not so quick, define activities. Let's go to define activities. So define activities is another important process, majorly because this is where you're breaking down the WBS work packages into tasks that will help you get the work done. So it becomes very important to, as accurately as possible, define what needs to be done in these tasks. We also call them activities. Activities, tasks. Some people try to delineate an activity from a task, but they're used interchangeably in this world. So you got to know your activity attributes, your activity list, and your milestone list. Those three. And then you also need to understand decomposition. This is talked about in this aspect as well on page 185. And along with decomposition, you want to be keeping your eye on rolling wave planning, a type of progressive elaboration. Okay? So as I'm going through this stuff, if you got any questions or queries, or there's anything that you feel I'm not too sure, well, you're always free to ask. That's define activities. The next thing is sequence activities. And you see I use abbreviations because I'm trying to get my friends who are not yet familiar with the process names to force themselves to think about what I'm putting down here. I want you to know the process names. So sometimes it takes a little bit of intentionality thinking, what exactly is that? Especially when you're new to it. Those of you who've been studying this for a year now, you already know this stuff in your sleep. But there are a lot of people that don't. So sequence activities, one of the major things to know here is PDM, a precedence diagramming method. Network diagrams, be familiar with them. And PMI calls it project schedule network diagrams. If you have not watched my video about the 1 method versus the 0 method, take a look at it. If you're still wondering which method should I use, I put out that video a few days ago. All right, that's a great video for those who are new to this, still trying to make up their mind whether to go with the 0 or the 1. Some people have a natural affinity for the 1, and that's okay. As long as you don't mess it up on the exam, don't be clumsy with it. Because the juggling of that 1, whether you're subtracting it or adding it or whatever you're doing with it, it becomes too unwieldy. It becomes so much work for me that I just prefer to use the 0 method. All right, so sequence activities, you got to know your PDM very well. I would say it's not a bad addition to know your ADM, your arrow diagramming method, also known as AOA, just for the historical reasons of how it is different from PDM. And if you're on our course, just go through that additional content. Through the grapevine on social media, people are like, why did I waste time reading AOA? Well, with our friends at headquarters, anything can happen. I would just know AOA just to be doubly sure, until they put out a disclaimer, this is not on the exam, which they never do. I would not read AOA along with AON, which, by the way, is the same as PDM. So activity on node. You got to know those really well, all right? Also here, you got to know your dependency determination. And integration, they call it, all right? And then, in addition to that, understand the difference between a lead and a lag. So your leads, deliberately accelerating an activity to start earlier than it needs to get ahead in the schedule, and lags, deliberately delaying an activity. Sometimes you just got to put that lag time in there instead of putting in another activity, okay? A typical example given about lags is the time for concrete to cure. It's not a task in and of itself. It's just curing time, wait time. You got to wait. All right, so that's sequence activities. The next one here is estimate activity durations. And in estimate activity durations, the first thing that should jump out at you is the 4 estimating approaches. So you got to know your parametric, your bottom-up, your analogous, and your 3-point. And under 3-point, you got to know both your triangular and your beta. And just be ready for trickery. Just be ready for trickery. I mean, the other week they came out with this mock exam for the PMP, your friends at PMI, and taking a look at the mock exam, there was just a downright dirty question. It was just downright dirty because it was slimy, and they were testing 3-point estimates, and I just shook my head. How would you expect a poor student to know what you are doing here? I just shook my head, and that's why I tell people you got to know this stuff well, because they ain't going to take no prisoners. It's right there in your face, very aggressive. Just whoom, and they just throw it right there in your face. You're wondering, what on earth is this? Where did this come from? I've heard from many students on the exam, they think they're in a wrong exam. That's how bad it is. They think they're in a wrong exam because they don't take prisoners on those questions. Now, quite interestingly, those of you who are taking the pilot exam, or maybe even the new exam, maybe you're watching this after July 1st, 2020. Well, I heard from a colleague of mine, Gina, and she said she heard from a student or someone else who said, my goodness, these pilot questions, because they've started the pilot exam, and this poor student was bewildered because this student didn't see what was coming, and what was coming at this student was not just multiple choice, choose one. It was select all that apply. And unfortunately, this student didn't know. And, some of you on my pilot exam, mock exam, you're going to be amazed because you're going to see just that, You're going to see some drag and drop, select all that apply. We have them in there. We've always had those on our quizzes anyway. We've had students grumble in the past. Why should you put select all that apply? The PMI doesn't put this in their exams. Well, now this, you don't have much to say, do you? Because now they've put them in the exam. So, all of that to say, you just got to be ready for the unexpected. It's a wild and violent exam in many instances. I remember sitting down there in Colorado in one of the exams I took. It was my risk management professional exam. And I sat down there looking at the questions, just wondering, wow, you guys are pretty harsh. So you mean one of my students, let's say they were taking this risk management professional exam, you would give them this same question? That question was violent. It was just a vile question. Let's be honest. It was very, very bad. And I say all this not to induce panic in you, but to induce urgency in you that the PMP exam is not a cakewalk. It's a hard exam for many students. The questions are not even easy to read. Just getting through the language alone. You probably deserve a PhD for that, just to get through the language. Because the language is so obtuse and esoteric. It's hard. Enough said. All right, so that's estimate activity duration. Next one here is develop schedule. Develop schedule. You want to think about some very unique outputs here. So you've got a project calendar. You've got a project schedule. You've got the schedule baseline. And if you don't know what the difference is between those two, your schedule baseline is a particular version of the schedule, a particular approved version of the schedule. And it is different from the living, breathing schedule that the project manager can update without any permission. Okay, so pay close attention. You know, the project schedule is not part of the project management plan. Did you know that? It is not part of the project management plan. So if you didn't know that now. Okay? Good. And like I said, those of you that have questions, feel free to chat them in. Concerns, comments, always welcome. This is a very different type of PMP exam training channel in that we come on live to engage with you. Very few channels are like this, where people actually come on and ask you, do you have questions? Do you have questions to ask? All right, so for those of you just joining, today is pilot mock exam day for my students. So when my students are working, I'm out playing. They're doing the work today. This is my day to play. And if you're my student and not taking the mock exam, why are you here? Go take that pilot mock exam. Go. Go right now. All right, so we're talking about developed schedule. And in developed schedule, I said we've got a number of things here. We've got the project calendar. We've got the project schedule. We've got the schedule baseline. And we also have schedule data. So let's read what exactly this so-called schedule data is. A lot of people get mixed up with all this schedule language, but I'm hoping that this is making you feel a little bit more at ease. Page 220, it says the schedule data for the project schedule model is the collection of information for describing and controlling the schedule. The schedule data includes, at a minimum, the schedule milestones, schedule activities, activity attributes, and documentation of all identified assumptions and constraints. The amount of additional data varies by application area. Information frequently supplied as supporting detail includes resource requirements, alternative schedules, best case, worst case, not resource leveled, or with or without imposed dates, and applied schedule reserves. Schedule data could also include such items such as histograms, cash flow projections, order and delivery schedules, or other relevant information. So let's just say all data relating to the schedule. My, oh my. You know, this is why some people, my agile friends, my friends from the predictive world, they just pull their hair out when they open up this book, because for them, it's too much. Couldn't you have said that? Couldn't you have said that more easily? Sometimes we get caught up in these vices. I went out to train my friends at a shipyard out in Louisiana, and I was defining something in the PMBOK guide for them. And then they end up correcting me and say, why don't you just say this? And it must have been just 5 words, and they corrected me. But, bad habits die hard. I'm so used to reading the PMBOK guide. I'm giving them the PMBOK definition. Like, no, this doesn't work for us. It's too much. So this frustrates a lot of my other students from the predictive world. the adaptive world who are trying to make the jump into the predictive world. They're like, Phil, it's too much. All right, so that is that for schedule in planning, right? Schedule management and the planning tasks. The planning processes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got one more, and this is control schedule. Now, on the surface, control schedule looks very innocent until the howling flying monkeys are released on the exam, and you'll be amazed at what these people can come out with on the exam. So a few things that are here that are a bit, like anomalies. We have the iteration burn down chart. For those of you who are still on your agile journey, take note of the iteration burn down chart. Also take note of, let me go a few pages back. There's something I want to call out to you here. And this is under develop schedule. It's on page 216. I should have actually put this here in develop schedule. Agile release planning. Go watch my video on that. I've got a video on agile release planning, and I walk through figure 6-20. So you got to understand the world of agile, the whole thing, especially now, whether you're taking the current exam or the future exam. The whole story about, let's just hone in on Scrum for a little bit, right? Scrum, product backlogs and sprint backlogs and sprint planning and everything in your Scrum, you got to know it just in case. So the iteration burn down chart, let's read. It says, this chart tracks the work that remains to be completed in the iteration backlog. In other words, a sprint backlog. It is used to analyze the variances with respect to the ideal burn down based on the work committed from iteration planning. In other words, sprint planning. A forecast trend line can be used to predict the likely variance at iteration completion and take appropriate action. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came up with questions where you needed to calculate stuff or deduce stuff from an iteration burn down chart. So that is important. Also talked about here is something I had typed in earlier, the critical path method. You got to know that. And bear in mind that on the critical path, slack or float could be 0, but it could also be negative, could also be positive, depending on the conditions. So you got to be all over that forward pass, backward pass, and all that stuff. Free slack, total slack, project slack. You got to know the difference. So free slack is the difference between the early start of the successor and the task in question. And if you've got multiple successors, then you want to choose the smallest difference. That's your free slack. Your total slack is your ES. You take away the ES from the LS, so late start minus early start, or late finish minus early finish. And for your project slack, it's the customer required due date minus your project end date. So remembering those things is going to help you. Another big topic that I unceremoniously jumped over in develop schedule is resource optimization and schedule compression. Two favorites of the question writers. So you got to know them. The question writers, they delight in those. That is a place where one can have a lot of question writing fun. So I would say for those of you who are studying this chapter, you got to understand your resource leveling and smoothing, and you got to understand that when it comes to resource smoothing only makes adjustments within the slack or the float. It does not mess with the critical path. However, resource leveling does. So smoothing versus leveling, you got to understand that. And then when it comes to the other topic of schedule compression, you got to understand that fast tracking and crashing, they could both add to risk. So if someone's saying, oh, they don't both add to risk, that's not true. They both could. As far as which one usually results in more cost. It's crashing, obviously, because you're adding resources. But when it comes to fast tracking, for it to make a dent in the critical path, you should be doing them in parallel. And all this stuff is here. It's here in a lot of detail. Understand the differences between those two. Crashing and fast tracking, and then smoothing and leveling. That will help you. Also understand that the unique output of control schedule is schedule forecasts. And your schedule forecasts, you got to remember that these are uniquely an input to what? Who knows that? Who knows the answer to that? Schedule forecasts are uniquely an input to which process? Anyone know that? Hey, British, how you doing? Other than ITTO and process definitions, what else should you focus on for CAPM? Good. So everything I'm going through right now, this is definitely food for the CAPM. Nothing I've shared here is off bounds or off limits for the CAPM. For the CAPM, what you need to do, tell me when you're ready to take your mock exam. In fact, why don't you do this right now, British? Why don't you send me an email? Send an email to support@praizion.com and just put in the email, remember to send me my CAPM mock exam, because we got a special CAPM mock exam for those taking the CAPM. Don't take the PMP mock. When you're truly ready, that's when you take the CAPM mock. And it'll give you a very good idea of what you could face. It's pretty much just a collection of many questions you may have encountered on our LMS, but they don't have any PMP contaminants in it, if you get what I mean. There are no hard PMP questions in it. We just keep it, even. So for all those of you like British taking the PMP, the CAPM exam, this is your one-stop shop, my friends. Okay, we just had our friend Yasser pass this exam today, and Yasser pretty much attended my PMP classes, and he killed it. He got above target overall, So if you stay to the LMS, British, if you just stay on the LMS, take those quizzes. The challenge quizzes are definitely fair game. The 2020 quizzes are very, very hard, but it will open up and expand your mind. So I would say take the knowledge area quizzes in the main body, take the challenge quizzes, take the 2020 quizzes, take the final CAPM mock exam, send that email right now, and then just make sure you're all over this. All right, so the inputs, the tools, techniques, and output, a lot of the videos that I put up here on YouTube, they would help anyone trying to prepare for the CAPM, in addition to all the stuff that we have on the LMS. Basically, if you went through our LMS, you're done. Nothing else. Just go through the LMS, all the videos, all the quizzes, boom, you're done. You'll kill it. So I'm looking for some great news from you. But if there's anything specific that you would like me to address in the chapters, I would be more than happy. So plan cost management. Is it hard? Was there a tricky clause in there as you read it? Because to be honest, I look at most of these knowledge areas business as usual. But what I'll do when we get towards the tail end, just remind me, I'm going to open up the CAPM content outline. I'll just point out a few things for you. But I will also point out, British, let me point out to you that for the CAPM exam, Chapter 3 is important. I think Chapter 3 is one of the weightiest of all the chapters. Okay, so the CAPM exam content outline. Have you read the content outline or not? I'm going to send it to you right now. You need to read this content outline. And have you taken a look at the sample question? Let me show you right quick here, British, really quick. Take a look real quick here. So if you take a look at the CAPM page, right, you've got the FAQs and all this stuff. But if you scroll down, you find the content outline, and you want to go to the breakdown across chapters by percent. So chapter 3 isn't as beefy as I thought. What was I thinking? All right, it's 7%, which is substantial, but it's not as big as I thought. Maybe I was thinking of the old outline. Integration is bigger at 9%. Scope, 9%. I thought there was one at 10. Oh, there we go. It's communications, actually. Yep, communications, 10% of your CAPM exam. So let me just copy this into the chat. And why don't you take a look at, it's rather big link. All right. Take a look at that. And yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, you're guessing the answer to my question. Where does cost forecast go? Good guess. It's not planned cost, though. Does anyone know? Rashid, how you doing? Rashid says, what major difference would be after July 1st exam? Very good question, Rashid. So there are a number of differences. I'm going to get done with cost here because I want to stay on track for the sake of those students who are really trying to digest schedule and cost. And when I get done, I'm gonna show you the massive differences. The differences are ridiculous, to be honest. No, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying they are so monumental. As you probably heard me talking about this in the beginning, the differences on the exam navigation and interface to start with, it could be quite jarring for those who were not expecting it. As I was sharing with you, my colleague Gina on our REP group was expressing how a poor student was absolutely miffed at how, not only did she have drag and drop, she had select all that apply. Those select all that applies, those are they're hard. They're very hard. I think some of us just have issues with those select all that apply because we just find them harder than most people, So I think some of us are just naturally challenged with select all that applies. I'm not a huge fan of them, to be honest. But they're there on the exam, Rashid, for example, and then drag and drop. And then instead of the exam being broken out by the 5 process groups, it's now broken out in 3 big buckets. And then you also have more agile and hybrid, and predictive is just 50%. So you got 50% predictive and then 50% hybrid and agile. But I'll go over that later on. Let's wrap this cost management up. It's not going to be that long, I promise. So, British, the answer to that question, let me show you. Where does cost forecast go as an input? The answer to that is in chapter 4. Chapter 4, you can probably guess the process now. 4.5. It is very unique to the PMBOK guide. Chapter 4, because it does not go anywhere else. So if you go to page 105, schedule forecast, you can see it listed under project documents. Right there as inputs to monitor and control project work. And that is because it is used in the work performance reports. It says on page 108, based on the project's past performance, the schedule forecasts are used to determine if the project is within defined tolerance ranges for schedule and to identify any necessary change request. You also see a repeat. This chapter we're going into now in cost, the third bullet on that page 108 is also cost forecast. So you're going to use these cost forecasts to report on the project about any variances that may exist. All right, so let's go over to cost now. So in the world of cost, again, you can see in 7.1 EDM, expert judgment, data analysis, meetings. The same 3, good, bad, and ugly. Expert judgment, previous similar projects, information in the industry, cost estimating and budgeting, and earned value management. You want people that have expertise around that to hang around the project, right? Data analysis, The kind of data that you're analyzing here is you're reviewing strategic funding options, self-funding, funding with equity, funding with debt, and then meetings, planning meetings to develop the cost management plan. And like I said, the cost management plan here is very similar to what you have in the schedule management plan. So you've got units of measure, level of precision, level of accuracy, organizational procedures links, again, how the WBS will link to the control accounts and the accounting system, control thresholds, rules of performance measurement. So there's a deeper topic here. British, nothing to worry about regarding this, but for those PMPs, PMP students, I think at a minimum you should know your earned value methods, right? Your earned value methods, rules for earned value performance. I have got a plethora of videos about this on YouTube. So let me see if I can find these for you, because I cannot talk about these right now, but it is a topic I would recommend. Earned value methods. And let's see if I can find any of my videos on this. Okay. So earned value methods. You'll find this in my PMBOK Gold series. You see that right here. In my PMBOK Gold series, I have a number of videos that look like this. And this is just one of them. So I'm going to put this video, I'm going to put this one, I'm going to put this into the chat box. And you guys can go look for the other 6. There's 7 videos in the series. And that's because there are many ways you can claim earned value. You could use units produced. You could use percent complete. You could use milestones, weighted milestones. There are many ways. But that would be going into too much content for now. But go to my PMBOK Gold series and look for all this information. All right. So when they talk about rules of performance measurement on page 239 and all this earned value stuff, I think it's good for project managers to understand earned value to a large degree, especially if your organization uses it or works with the government. It just helps. It helps better frame your understanding of earned value. And I have an entire book on earned value. For those people from the world of aerospace or shipbuilding or tank building or what, those worlds, you might want to look for that book. If I do remember, I'll put a link down below after to that book. All right. So establish the earned value management techniques, specify tracking methodologies, and the EVM computation equations. There's so many EV equations, and that's why I tell people, just stick to page 267 and don't go crazy, because if you do, you could end up getting confused. There's so many other earned value formulas that you could use, but you don't need to go down that path. All right. Reporting formats and additional details. All right. So that's EDM, and cost management plan is what this was. All right. Going to our next process. Estimate costs. Estimate costs. To really understand this, you got to understand the WBS. I know it sounds strange, but you got to understand your work breakdown structure, control accounts, and how that maps into schedule and how that weaves here into cost. So you're going to take your work package and you're going to break it down into tasks, right? Well, those tasks, you're going to estimate cost for those tasks. That is just one way that you estimate cost. But don't forget, you can estimate cost in an analogous manner at the higher levels, and then weaving in the cost from those high levels into the lower level tasks. So just keep that in mind. All right? So you could estimate costs at a high level. You could estimate costs at a low level. You could do it at the work package level. You could do it at the task level. What happens when you get to a task that you cannot estimate? You use bottom up, right? You can break it down even further to subtasks And you can roll those up to the task level, and then those tasks, you roll them up into a work package level, and that's just how you estimate. Now, regarding the different types of estimating, you're given on page 241 a breakdown of the accuracy of some of these estimates. So you got to know your ROM, rough order of magnitude, and you also should know your definitive estimating ranges. And these are given here. ROM minus 25 to plus 75, very rough. You got 100 points in that band. And then you got minus 5 to plus 10 for definitive. So that is definitely worth knowing. In terms of the tools, techniques, and all that, the ITTOs, I want to call your attention to mention of the scope baseline, relevance to estimate cost, okay? And then your 3 estimating types. No, 4, I beg your pardon. 4 estimating types. This is going to help you seal the deal. Know your 4 estimating types, know when they're used, and all that. Understand reserve analysis. And to understand reserve analysis and how it boils down into the estimates, I'd like you to look at that image that appears further down on page 260. 260 what? Hold on. It's the one on budgeting. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. It's where you got all the management reserves. There we go, page 255. So let me just put it, page 255. Okay, and figure 7-8. I know this is further ahead, but it's going to help you understand how these reserves flow. All right, those of you in the pilot class, we covered this in great detail, remember? All right, so that's estimate costs pretty much. The outputs, you also need to know your cost estimates and your BOEs, your basis of estimates. All right, last but not least, we've got determined budget. And in determined budget, you got to understand how you got your cost baseline, and you got to know the difference between your cost baseline and the budget. And that's why I said go to figure 7-8, page 255 again, figure 7-8. This is where you can get a very good visual of the differences between your cost baseline and your budget. 255. And if you go there, you can see your cost baseline plus management reserve gives you the project budget. Now, even though we say budget at completion and we use that loosely, it's important to discipline yourself to remember that is not the real budget. Your budget at completion is really, in essence, your cost baseline. That's what you use for earned value calculations. So you got to remember that. Okay? All right. Well, let's go over to our favorite process here, which is none other than CC. Sounds very friendly. It's friendly to those who've done the homework. Control cost. And control cost, this is where the not so dreaded earned value lives. In earned value, you got to know all of the formulas associated with earned value in the PMBOK guide on page 267. That's right, page 267. I know a lot of us don't want to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. So all that I did previously, I should have actually moved it in here. This is the planning section. So Let me make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So everything here is pretty much in planning. This was the executing column. This is planning. But don't worry, you didn't get anything too muddled up there. And these should actually be here in monitoring and controlling. All right. And you can see this is monitoring and controlling. This is closing. And we started off with integration. Go watch those videos if you haven't watched integration and scope. And this is schedule. And speaking of which, those of you that are struggling with your studying, you might want to go pick up one of these. We have these on Amazon. It's called a Project Management Audio Digest. It is 20 hours of audio. 20 hours of audio. It's got entertainment. It's got stories about project management. It's got gags. It's got a lot of content. All this stuff I'm telling you right now, you can find it in there. You can also go to the Praizion site and you can download it instant. You can get an instant download. You have 20 hours of audio. Those of you on a crazy commute every morning, you find it hard, this is what you need. Look at it. It's called Project Management Audio Digest. Still wrapped. But I know a lot of folks, they don't use CDs no more. They use MP3. So that's also another study aid that can help you in the journey. All right. Okie doke. Well, let's round up this cost talk here. So control cost. Right here. Earn value. And under earn value, you got to know your metrics. Plan value, or the budgeted cost of work scheduled. If you would take time to know the 4-letter acronyms, how good would it be for you? Because it helps you make more sense of earned value, right? Earned value is a budgeted cost of work performed. It's what you actually do. Actual cost is the actual cost of work performed. Know your metrics. And from those 3 core metrics, you get what I call derivative metrics. And the derivative metrics are SPI, SV, CPI, and CV. The easy way of remembering this is whether it's SPI, whether it's SV, whether it's CPI, whether it's CV, they all start with EV, right? So SPI, CPI. SV, CV. The quick way of remembering them, my friends, is earned value comes first. So I often say earned value is king. Those of you who watch my earned value is king video know what I'm talking about. Earned value is king. It always comes first. All right. If you're dealing with an index, what do? You divide. Division. If you're dealing with a variance, what do? You subtract. Subtraction. And that's how you remember variances versus indices to start with. Okay? And then, if you're talking about cost, then you have actual cost at the other end of the equation. Simple as that. And then there's only one left. You know, cost has actual cost, and schedule, just think about the schedule is the plan. So when you're talking about schedule, you're talking about plan value. The schedule is the plan. And that's how you remember these formulas, SPI, CPI, SVCV. An easier way of remembering is using the mnemonic South Carolina or supply chain, SCSC, SCSC, or just remember across the month of September, SEP, like that. See? Same thing here. the month of September. Or you could remember the mnemonic, someone else's problem, SEP. And then children eat always, CEA, or eat a lot, or eat a little. It depends, right? So SEP, CEA, SEP, CEA, variances, subtract, indices, divide. End of story. Boom. There's no reason why anyone shouldn't get these simple earned value questions right on the exam, because they're so easy. Especially when you get questions that say your SPI is 0.8. What does it mean? Or the earned value line is below the planned value line. Anytime earned value lines are below anything, it's always a bad story. Anytime earned value is above, earned value is king. It always needs to be above. So those lines that we often see in the graphs, an easy way of remembering them, and I'll just do a very quick illustration here. Super quick illustration. I want you guys to get every point possible on the exam. All right, let's go to our little illustration board here. So assume you had a question that gave you a graph, and let's say the earned value line was green. We make earned value the green line, and you had something like that. That's earned value. And let's say you had a red line, which we will call, let's call the red line actual cost. So this is the red line. This is the actual cost line. Okay. So at point X, let's make a point X somewhere here. At point X, here, you could get a question that says, what is this? What is the state of the project, or what is the overall condition of the project? So if this is actual cost, at point X, let me go to my laser. So at point X right here, you can see actual cost is more than the earned value amount. And you know how that is tracked? Typically, you want to track these back to, this is cost on this axis. Okay, this is cost, and this is time on the x-axis. So if you trace the actual cost here, let's say the actual cost is, let's just say 8. If you trace the earned value to the cost line or the cost axis, let's say this is 6. What does this really mean? It means that you got $6 worth of work. Let's say it's dollars. You got $6 worth of work done, but you paid $8 to get it done. Is that good? No, it's not. It's bad. And this is how you just think about earned value should be equal to the actual cost, but you definitely don't want it to be lower. It could be higher, but you know, in good taste, not so much higher that your stakeholders get concerned that you padded or you did something wrong. So taking a look at this at point X, you would obviously be able to see that your CPI is going to be less than 1. There's no way your CPI can be anything but less than 1. Now at this point, let's call this point, this next point over here, let's call this point Y. At point Y, you can see the earned value and the actual cost are equal. So at this point, let's say you trace this back to this axis and it is 10. Both the earned value and the actual cost are 10. Excuse my horrible mouse writing. I can do better than that. let's at least make it legible, right? Okay. So let's call this 10. What this means is that the actual cost is 10, the earned value is 10. You got $10 worth of work done and you paid $10. And this would make your stakeholders happy. Your stakeholders won't be mad at you for that. Okay? But they would be mad at point X. I'm sorry, it's not showing very well. Let me adjust the image slightly. And let me take myself a little bit out of the shot. So that's point X, that's point Y. Okay? I hope it's clearer now. And the actual cost, let me see if I can squeeze that in as well. All right, there we go. So you can truly see what I'm saying. The actual cost, the earned value, you want them to be the same. And then if we throw in the planned value, same thing. You could throw in a planned value line. Let's throw in a planned value line here. I'll make this blue. So if we throw in the planned value, and planned value was, let's say planned value goes like this. All right. So at point X, planned value is under the earned value line. So this is planned value and it's blue. So what could we deduce from this? Well, at point X, since the planned value line is under the earned value line, it means that you are ahead of schedule. Okay? But when you get to point Y, you can see that the planned value line is now above the earned value line. So you are now behind schedule slightly. And even though you are on budget, you are behind schedule. And that's how you use this stuff. And I wanted to spend some time talking about it because I know a lot of folks, they struggle with this earned value topic. So going back to what we're looking at. You need to understand, in addition to all of this, you need to know what the metrics mean. Know what the metrics mean. All right. And then you got to know your EACs. EACs, all 4 of them. You got to know your BAC. You got to know your VAC. You got to know your TCPI 2. And you got to know your ETC. ETC. And you got to understand the concept of how to calculate EV. Right? EV is equal to the percent complete times the planned value, or percent complete times the BAC. And this would be going into too much detail, but for those who are taking the PMP, you better know how to calculate your EV, buddy, or you could run into issues on the exam. Like where they give you a percent complete and a planned value and they don't tell you what the earned value is, you could struggle. So you got to know your EV and the context. When to use PV, when to use BAC. You also need to know the concept of cumulative versus current earned value management. You could calculate earned value for just one snapshot in time. You could calculate it for the entire project. You could calculate it based on a month. You could calculate it based on several months aggregated. All right. So, hey, if your company, if you are watching right now and your company's looking for someone to train them on earned value, I want you to call me to help you. Don't go calling other people that don't have experience in this, because I've used this stuff in real world for work. Written books on it. I've written a book on earned value called Earned Value Basics. Don't go to those folks who just say, oh, here are the formulas. No. You really want to have a conversation, you really want your people to learn earned value, hit me up. put a comment here or just send an email to support@praizion.com. It's one of the areas that I'm very passionate about, as you can probably tell. Some people say earned value doesn't work. I feel sorry for those people. I feel sorry for them. They got no clue what's happening. All right, my friends. Well, that is it. Those are 4 processes in cost. And those are the processes in schedule. And I hope you found value from that. And right now, I want to answer the 2 questions that came in. And we'll round up. So, let me save my file. And the questions that came up earlier, let's go to our chats. The question from our friend British about the CAPM exam. So let's take that. I see our friend Sharon Joy wrote in as well. Management reserves are untouchable without permission. You got to ask for permission before you use those management reserves. They are 4 unknowns, all right? They are 4 unknowns. Contingency reserves are for known risks. So I would recommend just do a search in your PDF for everywhere you see management reserves, everywhere you see contingency reserves. It will become quite clear. All right. So, British, let's go to our little CAPM exam content outline. And let us dig into the CAPM for a second. My CAPM exam, I'm due to take it again next year. It's every 5 years. So I took it in 2011. I took it again in 2016. And I'll be taking it again next year. Hopefully. I still have some interest in this, even though I've done it twice. The 3rd time would be even more fun. All right, so for your CAPM exam, understand the 5 project management process groups and life cycles and all that chapter 1 stuff and all this chapter 2 stuff. See? And then let me just break down up beyond chapter 3, going into chapter 4. They all have this layout. British. They all have this layout. Understand the processes. Then they talk about the tools and techniques. Then they talk about the purpose, for the process or for the knowledge area. Key concepts and procedures relating to change management have been called out. So I would say pay close attention to that video on the learning management system, where we have performing a great change control talked about. And then the concept of tailoring. So everything that they have here, for every chapter, British, you got to understand them piece by piece. Take a look at this. Understand project scope management for Agile. So people who say, oh, Agile isn't that big, even on the CAPM, you got to know Agile. So British, let me show you really quickly. For every chapter in the PMBOK guide, and this goes for PMPs as well, because I know some people just fly straight over this. They don't read it. But I want to recommend to you where we have the CTTCs, concepts, trends, tailoring, and consideration for Agile. For example, on page 133, considerations for Agile adaptive environments. In projects with evolving requirements, high risk, or significant uncertainty, the scope is not often understood. See that? And then we could even go deeper into what is repeated in an Agile setting and what is not. So if you go to page 131 and you go to the second paragraph, page 131, it says, projects with adaptive life cycles are intended to respond to high levels of change and require ongoing stakeholder engagement. And then it goes into details about 3 processes: collect requirements, define scope, and create WBS are repeated for each iteration. You see that level of detail about Agile stuff? It is important. PMPs, don't skip it. Don't. You got to read your Agile. It's like eating your veggies. I know some of you predictive fans, you're like, oh, Agile is a bad word. It's not good. Who said that? You got to know you're agile for your exam anyway. Enough said. So as you go through each of these, you'll see some mention about agile and adaptive environments. That is the stuff they want you to know. The CTTCs, the focus on agile. See that? They keep mentioning key concepts for agile environments. What do you think they're talking about? The CTTCs. Okay? So if you haven't paid close attention to those, please do. Please do that. And that's why students who take the CAPM, they said, there's agile on this test. Help. Yep, there is agile. You got to know your agile stuff. It's all over the place. All right, so if you go through this content outline, you'll be in much better shape, British, okay? And I hope that answers your question. Let's go to our next question. So Rashid, talking about the changes. Oh my goodness, where do we start from? Don't open Pandora's box now. I think you just already did. Let's talk about this stuff quick so that we can get back to having a good weekend here. Not to say that this isn't part of your good weekend. All right, so the changes to the PMP exam. Let's talk about them one by one organically. So process groups go from the breakdown. The new order is the people, the process, and the business. People, 42% of the exam, and they could get this from anywhere: leadership, communication, stakeholder, resources, anything. Process, 50% of the exam. Business, 8% of the exam. And bear in mind that this further distinction is 50% agile and hybrid. In other words, this is code for the Agile Practice Guide. And secondly, 50% predictive. All right? So you got to keep that in mind. This is like the big change. You know, as it is today, the breakdown is initiating at 13%, planning at 24%, executing 31%, monitoring and controlling 25%, and closing 7%. And that's the exam as it is today, Rashid, as you probably know. But going to July 1st forward, right? July 1st, 2020, now until until June 30th. All right, so it's a very significant difference. See that? It's very significant. So for those of you who are thinking of taking the exam, you know, either way, I don't want to be an alarmist or anything. If I were you and I knew about this earlier, I would have taken the pilot exam because I like a challenge, right? But if you couldn't take the pilot exam and you can still take the current exam, go for the current exam. Do it. there's going to be a lot of changeability. Once we get to July 1st, it's going to be significantly different. And a lot of people have been, the buzz. I talk about how a colleague of mine said one of her students complained about how different it was. And, let's just add a few more differences here. More exam variables. Not only multiple choice, you're going to have drag and drop, select all that apply, and scenarios. So video might play. You might be asked to put on your headset and listen to some video, watch some video, listen to some audio. Fun stuff. If until you're put in the hot seat, it sounds like fun stuff. So I don't know if that's your cup of tea. If you're daredevil on these exams, well, have fun with it. But some of us just like a higher level of predictability, like all multiple choice, single answer. As far as the syllabus is concerned, I would say this is a wider syllabus with much more agile and hybrid. For this one, you must know agile well to excel. If you don't know agile, you're doomed in this new exam. Now, a lot of people are not going to scale it because they don't know agile enough. And let's just be honest, Scrum is the most widely used agile methodology. So expect some inference to it. 71+% of companies in the world use Scrum. So, those people who say we use Agile, they're really talking about Scrum. So you do need to know Scrum. All right? Any other questions or concerns? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. If there are no questions, I want to say thank you very much for joining me. And don't be a stranger. Keep coming back to the channel. Hit like, hit subscribe. Help your buddy Phil. A lot of people don't know I need help. I need your help. I need your help to hit like. I need your help to subscribe. I need your help to post this on social media. I need your help. Some people say, Phil, I really appreciate all that you've done. Well, if you do, help me. If you appreciate all that I'm doing, giving out free stuff to thousands of students every week, help me. Just a simple click of the like button. I don't typically ask for this very often, but I need you to help me. I need you to help pass this message across. So many students say, Phil, if I had known about you, I would have taken your course. But that's not even what I'm interested in. Some of them are like, Phil, if I had known you, I would not have failed 4 times, 5 times. I would have passed. And I hate hearing this. I want people to know about these videos quick. Do you know how many people tell me, Phil, I went for a $2,000 course and my instructor, all he did or all she did was just read off the screen. I cannot count how many students have told me, oh, I went to that course, virtual course, and all my instructor was doing was reading from the PMBOK guide. I hate hearing that. So instead of wasting your money and your time on those courses that lead to nowhere, I want you to be on this channel. Some people just really honestly, they cannot afford training elsewhere. All they've got is their $555. Their whole family's banking on them passing this exam. They're like, hey, You better pass that exam. We're going to come hound you. You better pass that exam, because all the savings, and I know this firsthand because I couldn't afford to go for a course myself. So when I'm putting out stuff to help people, I'm helping myself of 15 years ago that was looking for just a little bit of hope, just any video that would, any video. Like back then, there was no YouTube. So that's why I need your help, all right? If you're one of my students, if you're watching this video, hit like. I want you to big up this one with likes so that other people can find the channel. That's what it's all about. Let them find the channel, let them subscribe, let them find the thousands of videos and just go through and help themselves. All right? That's what it's all about, my friends. Any final questions before I jump off today? Mr. Ali, how you doing? Thank you very much. I see British. Awesome stuff. I see another of our friends, Hiba Al-Omush. I want to take Agile online course to understand in deep Scrum Kanban. Very good, very good. So you know what I would advise you to do? We have a course on agileprinciple.com. Let me go there so that you can see what it's all about. And you'll get instant access when you go to agileprinciple.com. Let's go there. If you go to agileprinciple.com, you'll come across the course, and all you need to do is hit sign up now. My buddy Roy and myself, we put this course together, and we go through. Let me show you what content we go through here. We go through quite a lot of stuff. Let's bring up the syllabus from the content outline. There's a content outline for the PMP exam. And I'll just show it to you here. Hold on a second. A lot of stuff in this breakdown, I can assure you. The really cool thing about this is we break it down based on what the PMP syllabus is, but we flip it on its head and we make it agile. So Hiba Al-Omush, based on your question, this is why you probably should take this course. Let me show you here. All right. So all of these tasks that you're seeing here, instead of you just having a PMBOK lens view or a predictive view, we break it down how to manage conflict if you're in the world of Agile, how it's done, how you would interpret the source of the conflict, how you would analyze it, all of these steps from an Agile perspective. Then we would go to the next task, support team performance. How do you support team performance from an Agile perspective? Who does that and how is it done? See? Then we would go to empower team members and stakeholders. How is that done in Agile? And we'll go through all of this stuff from an Agile lens. But then we would go into the same content from a process lens. So let me show you what that would look like. So if you've taken a look at the PMP exam content outline for 2020, well, let me just show you the crossover map. Here's a crossover map. Let's look at that. So what we would do in this course in the world of the processes, we would walk you through how to execute the project with urgency to deliver business value from an Agile perspective. See what I'm saying? So all of this is purely Agile. This is all Agile. You know, how you would do that. And how you would manage communications from an Agile perspective, how you would assess and manage risks, how you would engage stakeholders, how you would plan and manage the budget, everything. So let me just copy this link and let me put it in the chat. And then that will give you an idea of what the course is based on. And the course, here's a link. Let me give you the link to the course. It's agileprinciple.com. And I'll give you a direct link. I would highly advise that you sign up for this because there are a lot of Agile courses, but they may not connect it to the world of the PMI the way Roy has in this training. In fact, Roy and I, we're going to have another set of Agile training sessions. So, I mean, if you are keen on knowing more about Agile and you wanted to attend an Agile course, I would recommend letting us know. You know, let us know. Drop a message, drop a note, drop a chat, and we'll email you that information. But anyway, there's the course. It's called Agile Fundamentals for Practitioners. And some of our pilot students were actually on this course. But like I said, oh, there we go. So session 1 is Agile Basics. Session 2 is the people. Session 3 is the business. And session 4 is the process. And if you click on sign up now, it's going to take you to an on-demand portal on Vimeo. It's on demand. I mean, it's that simple. The moment you go here and pay, you got access to it. Take a look. It's 7 hours, 59 minutes. And like I said, broken out into these 4 segments. So you can actually plan to cover this over a period of a month, maybe 2 hours a week. Very accessible. But, you know, great curriculum. Roy is an awesome trainer. We've done a lot of training live together for companies, and he just makes it so real world, so accessible, so easy. You want to be in that training, okay? So we have that on agileprinciple.com, and I would recommend it to anyone. Anyone, maybe even those taking the PMP exam. If you don't know Agile, you got to learn it, right? You got to learn it somewhere, and then you got to marry what the PMI are asking for in their content outline to Agile. The same way you would do it, marry it to the PMBOK guide, you got to marry it to Agile. And the Agile Practice Guide, though it is a great and accessible booklet for you to go through, it doesn't weave it together the way we have in this training. Trust me, it's this training. Anyone taking the PMP that is clueless about Agile, you have no idea about how Scrum works, Kanban doesn't even make sense, you're like, what's that? TDD, forget it. You never heard it. You need to be in this course, all right? So one more time, this is it. agileprinciple.com. You know, Roy's the man. He this is what he does. You know, this is not a predictive project manager trying to train you Agile. No. This is someone who eats, sleeps, drinks, breathes Agile. You know, he's the big guns people call in when they want their company to go through transformations and stuff. All right, so that's the training you want to be on, my friends, agileprinciple.com. And when you go to agileprinciple.com, it's going to take you to that Vimeo page. And I'll just put the direct Vimeo link in there for those of you who just want to do it. You know. I don't know if you've ever been in a place knowing I need to learn and you don't know how to learn. Well, this is how you need to do it. In addition to this, let me just let you know, those of you who are probably more advanced Agile thinkers and maybe you've gotten over like the basics, we have another Agile curriculum here on Praizion.com. This is more advanced. It's more like you're beginning to think more about Agile. It's called Agile Project Management Basics or something to that effect. I'm just going to copy that link as well. I would say more for the thinkers. So while it's, accessible to people who don't know about Agile, Mike, who trains this particular course, he gets very cerebral and he's making comparisons with things from from pop culture, and he kind of makes it fun on a different level. So if that's you and it sounds like something you want to do, you might want to go for that other agile course that I just showed. Let me go back to it. There we go. That's Mike, and this is the breakdown. This is 3 hours and 59 minutes. So it's not as long. It's shorter, but it's kind of expanding on some agile concepts. So it's another nice layer. But for those that are just new to this whole stuff, you want to go to the Agile Basics, this one. All right? Good. Okay, well, my friends, it looks like we've gotten to the end. Thank you very much for all the likes. I appreciate you for helping me and telling your friends about it, and, post it on social media, put it on your Facebook, put it on your Twitter. Help me, put it on your Instagram. Let people know that I'm out here trying to help someone, okay? Any further questions? Go in once, go in twice, go in 3 times. All right, well, thank you very much. I intend having some additional training, most likely in April. The rest of March, I'm going to catch my breath, take it a little bit easy. Hopefully, together doing the right things, we will defeat this ridiculous COVID-19 thing, right? Just be smart, my friends. I tell people, wear gloves. You're going to a public place, you're touching here, then everywhere. Wear those gloves. I got my stock of those gloves. And then just make sure you stay away, 6 feet away from entities you're not too sure of. And, you got to be smart. So nobody knows what's happening. Just be prepared, Stock up on whatever is within reason. Don't go crazy buying a whole store down now. They've actually started putting limits on how much you can buy. So just be prepared. You're a project manager. Do what's right for yourself and your family. Be smart. If you find stuff that you've been looking for eons, it might make sense for you to buy some decent amounts of, you know what I'm talking about. You got it. You're a project manager. You got it down. All right. But in April, hopefully when all this craziness is over, I'll be back to having some live virtual sessions for the PMP exam. For those of you studying for the July 1st forward exam, you need to go to pmsucceed.com. I have covered this in the past. I'll just say it now right quick. If you go to pmsucceed.com, on pmsucceed.com, we have our on-demand class for those people who are like, Phil, you know what? Forget it. There's no way I'm going to do this exam before July. All right. We got you covered. Why don't you go on down to pmsucceed.com, sign up now, and you'll be able to enjoy this very robust curriculum. So as I was going through that question that Hebert chatted in, the same curriculum, only that this time we marry it to a combination of the PMBOK guide raw and where necessary agile, just where necessary agile. So we've got all of the tasks, covered. Task 1, task 2, task 3, all the way down for the people, the process, the business. It is quite a remarkable course. And this is what my pilot students have been through. And today they are taking their mock exam of 4 hours. I cannot wait to see how they've done. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to seeing what they've been up to. All right, then. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your chats and your being active on this particular stream. British, all the best to you. I can see you've sent an email, and we'll be sure to get to you that CAPM exam, mock exam link. And to everyone else who is taking the exam very soon, I wish you all the very best, and don't be a stranger, all right? Stay in touch and let me know how well you do. Bye for now.